Peace, Instagram family. Um, you already know who I am, but maybe you haven't had a chance to meet my partner at Flash Rick. It's my business partner, Ricardo Garcia. We like to just call him Rick for short. And we were supposed to be doing, and we're actually doing a financial wellness workshop here at the Miami Caribbean Marketplace in Little Haiti. So, for those of you who are familiar with the Little Haiti Cultural Arts Complex, we're here right now live doing this so that way we can help to empower and educate our community. And, some of the things that we want to talk about today with you and that we wanted to share with our audience was ways to help improve our wealth, especially within our Caribbean cultures and community. So, like Rick, we talk often throughout the week about, things that occur within our communities that we both respectively observe,
Absolutely.
right? And like, what would you say is one of the biggest things that oftentimes can either help or hinder our progress as a financial culture, or like to create a financial culture?
Well, unfortunately, one of the parables that we hear often, but we tend to ignore, is those who fail to plan to fail.
Right.
And unfortunately, it's because the the idea of talking about money tends to be very taboo,
Okay.
where we feel that if we show our vulnerability as to where we are in our financial situation, that is going to somehow show that we are not worthy to be in a better place.
Right.
So we tend not to talk to our friends and families about it, and unfortunately we ignore the situation, and it ends up turning into a much bigger situation because now we no longer have time on our hands.
Right.
And the idea of getting out of debt and the idea of putting money away for retirement becomes so overwhelming that we ignore it,
Hmm.
and we just decide, you know what, I guess I'm going to work for the rest of my life.
Right. Now, like, oftentimes we've talked about how, like, within our communities, when it comes, especially with this taboo topic, it becomes a matter of it being like a prayerful situation in the worst of times, right? Like, our idea of like faith or some type of greater force out there becomes that, hey, like, I hope I have the money to afford this. I hope my family is taken care of. I hope I have enough to retire
I hope I
comfortably.
don't have to go back to work.
Oh my
I hope I
goodness.
win the lottery so that I could travel the world.
Right.
And unfortunately, it's one of these things that we tend to leave it on a greater good. But uh, for those of us who are Catholic and Christian, God created us in His likeness, and He gave us the power to be able to take care of ourselves.
Right.
So I'm blessed to be part of an organization where we want to provide financial literacy to everybody and show them
Okay.
that it's just a little seed that's necessary to grow the largest of oaks.
All right. So, like, for everyone that's out there in the Instagram world, while you're watching it live, if you have questions, feel free to put those into the chat. We're going to answer those questions for you. If you've ever wanted to speak to a financial planner, not a life insurance agent, we have those licenses. We didn't even introduce our credentials. So,
Absolutely. So, my name is Ricardo Garcia. I am a licensed life insurance agent, yes, but I'm also an investment principal. I'm an investment agent. I'm also a licensed mortgage broker. So, no matter what your financial situation is, whether you're looking to put money away for retirement, get out of debt, purchase a home, fix your credit, whatever the situation is, we're able to address all of your financial needs.
right. And so, like, for those that understand what it is that I do, like, this is just another way for me to introduce another side of wellness into our holistic approach with preventing not just illness and disease, but like economic disease as well. So look at this as a way of like saying like, hey, we're able to sit down with financial physicians, if you will, and we can create a game plan to help you do that. And so one of the ways that we want to do that is to show you a little bit of this presentation that we've got. So let's go ahead and get into a little bit of this, and we'll give you a sampling of what it is that you can expect when you actually have a chance to sit down with us. All right, for those of you who may be interested, slide into the DM, put your comments or your questions in the chat box. We're going to provide as much information and education as possible, and we're doing this for free, right?
Absolutely.
We're
The
not
financial
charging for
education
this.
we provide is free. The only thing we'll ever ask you in return is referrals. You know, people we know. So if you see value in what it is that we do, for us is very important to spread the knowledge and spread the wealth. So the first thing we wanted to talk about was protecting your assets, because more often than not, we don't have the legal paperwork, or we're not even aware of the legal paperwork that's necessary to take care of our family.
Right.
So you want to talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, for me, like this, exactly what you said is a very important thing to me because not a lot of people know that over 70% of Americans in this country die annually without having their affairs in order. And what that basically means is they haven't done the necessary, like, they don't know about the legal paperwork that's necessary to pass on wealth. And one of the ways that you can do that is through estate planning, right?
Absolutely.
So,
So one of the services we offer through one of our many vendors is making sure that all your legal paperwork is in order. One of the things being the last will and testament. For those of you that aren't familiar with the last will and testament, that is going to tell your family who gets your assets.
right. Now, your assets, when it comes to an estate, is the entirety of everything that you own, right? Because oftentimes we have this conversation, and some people get left out in the rafters because they're like, "You're talking over my head," and we don't want to make it so complicated that you don't get what we're talking about. So
Absolutely.
how do we simplify that?
So again, your last will and testament is going to state who gets your house, your retirement assets, be it a 401k, 403b, IRA, deferred comp, depending on where you work, any property such as your car, things of that nature. Because unfortunately, when you pass away, if there are assets that have not been distributed correctly, then you're going to unintentionally create tension amongst your family,
Right.
because everyone's going to feel that they have a right to those specific assets, and who knows what you want more than you yourself.
Right.
So
I mean, could you imagine, God forbid you pass and all of our understandings about like being on the other side are true, right? Like we actually can watch our families go through life, and one of the things that we're watching is them bickering and fighting about who gets the TV, who gets the house, who gets the car, who gets the baseball cards, right? Like,
absolutely.
this is just one of the ways that you can simplify that process and just make it easy for everyone to understand. I want this person to get this, I want this person to get that. And what are some of the legal benefits to actually creating the estate plan?
So here's the thing that a lot of us don't realize, that if we don't have an estate plan set up, then what's going to end up happening is somebody has to step in as a custodian of your estate. And more often than not, it's going to be your state of residence. And whether you realize it or not, they're not going to do it for free. Everybody's
Nope.
going to get their cut. So the last thing you would want is assets that are being left behind to your family to be depleted due to legal costs
Right.
that may be incurred because of the necessity for a custodian. So just taking a couple of seconds to get that taken care of.
Right. I like to look at it as saving yourself 55% from, by sitting down and actually doing the paperwork. Because if you don't, the state, that fee that they're charging you to administer the estate, it's
It's
over
going to deplete.
50%.
Absolutely. The next thing we talk about is a living will, and this tends to be the most emotionally exhausting um, things that you need to have in place, because this is going to tell your family, it's going to tell your caregivers and your doctors what it is that you want to happen during uncomfortable
Right.
situations, such as being connected to a respirator,
Right.
being brain dead, having a
Right.
heart attack, things of that nature. Me, unfortunately, I've had the unfortunate privilege of having assigned to do not resuscitate,
Mm.
understanding that that was what my grandmother and my mother wanted. Unfortunately, um, it's still something that hurts you emotionally. So it's one of these things that I would highly recommend, to not have to have your child
Right.
have to endure that emotional uh, burden of knowing that they were the ones who signed the do not resuscitate for someone that they love immensely. So
Like I see that this also like touches you a little bit, and like being someone who was in the service for 5 years, I knew guys who went and got the DNR tattoo on their chest, like just because if their paperwork had not been in order, in the event that they open up the shirt, they see DNR, do not resuscitate. So like while that might seem like an applicable form of like estate planning, it's really not enough when it comes to the financial components or the medical components of what you really want to do for your family,
And for
right?
those of us that live in the state of Florida, you may be familiar with the case of Terry Scheibel, where
Okay, talk about this.
where she was connected to a life support machine, and her family, being loving and caring and understanding, they did not want to unplug the machine. Unfortunately, her husband, which is somebody who's had the uncomfortable conversation with her and knew what it was that she wanted to execute her wishes.
Right.
Unfortunately, because it wasn't in writing, the family was put in an incredibly uncomfortable scenario where the parents did not want to unplug the machine. The husband did, given what was requested from her, and it ended up being drawn out, and it ended up tearing the family apart. And just imagine having your children look at, mommy and daddy fighting against grandma and grandpa.
Right.
In a case where you've lost a loved one, the last thing you want to do is create an incredible tear in the family, to add on to the loss of the loved one.
And so like this is a very proactive approach towards like ensuring your family understands what your wishes are, and that everyone understands like, hey, if this is what the wishes of grandpa, grandma, abuela, abuelo, abba, ama, whomever, however it is that we call the person that we revere and respect the most, usually for bringing us into this world. This is definitely an easy way to kind of like say, all right, here's one hurdle we can get past very easily, right?
Absolutely.
So we discuss other things because yeah, we understand that like even when it comes to healthcare surrogates, which is something that oftentimes people don't understand, is if you want the right person making the decisions for you in your health, it's important that you express exactly who that is, and
Yeah.
that's through a healthcare surrogate.
Absolutely, because if God forbid something wants to happen to you and you get rushed to the hospital, more often than not, if the emergency room needs someone to make a decision on your behalf, whoever's going to arrive at the hospital first may be appointed as the proxy
Mm,
on your behalf, be it the person that you wanted to make the decisions or not. But unfortunately, in an attempt to save your life, it's incredibly important that they assign someone. And because you didn't do it yourself, unfortunately, the hospital is going to have to do that on your behalf, whether it's the person you want or not.
wow. And so like that begs the question of like, do you really want to leave that type of decision in the hands of someone else that maybe you don't know, maybe you don't have that strong relationship and tie with? What happens if
Your ex spouse shows up at the hospital
oh
first.
God Whew, that's a conversation for another time. But these are very important things to consider
Absolutely.
if you want to avoid that type of a situation where, yeah, your ex spouse, hey,
Made it first, so she got a signed proxy. But
have it in place.
the last thing, I think is incredibly important is having a power of attorney, because if you were in a hospital and let's say you were in a coma or something where you cannot make decisions on your behalf, unfortunately you still have a mortgage, you still
Right.
have debt, and so on and so forth. But without having a power of attorney, if you do not have someone else on your bank account, it's going to be almost impossible for your family members to access your account to pay your
Right.
bills, so that your house doesn't go into foreclosure, or your house does not go into some sort of negative state because there wasn't someone able to access your account to make the payments
Right.
and ensure the default.
I mean, even that last part about what you just said there is extremely important. Let's take it a step back from being in a coma to like, let's say that you're apprehended or like just in a very bad position. This is a step further than just who your emergency contact person is. This is going to the step and degree of saying like, in the event that I'm incapacitated or even incarcerated, this person has all rights and access to make withdrawals or deposits into the account for the benefit of this action, that action, and those are special or full and durable powers of attorney that really, like, in some instances you may want to speak to an attorney about, because we're not lawyers and we don't want to
No.
misguide anyone into thinking like, oh, these guys are talking estate planning.
We
Listen,
just want to make sure that you're aware of the things that are necessary and exist out there.
right,
So we're all about making sure that you do not make an ignorant decision.
right.
So,
So yeah. So other things that we discuss, like as financial physicians, if you will, is what is the the dirty four-letter word that no one wants to talk about, but is on everyone's mind, and that's debt, right?
absolutely.
So
Unfortunately, debt is the biggest cause of stress. I think it's the biggest cause of divorce. It's the biggest cause of suicide. And unfortunately, it's something that we are programmed to at a very young age. We go to college for 4 years and we're given credit cards that they know for a fact that we can't pay,
don't know how to
or
use them.
you have a student loan, or just several things. And unfortunately, we're not taught the effective ways to pay off the debt. And what does everybody do? Everybody has all the right intentions to pay off their debt. And what
Mhm.
do? If they have multiple lines of credit and the minimum payment's 80, what do? They
Right.
send 100.
Send 100.
Minimum payments 110, they send 150. So they're sending additional payments to everybody at the same time, not understanding that that is the least effective way for you to pay off your debt.
Now explain why paying a little bit more on multiple lines of debt is potentially very dangerous to how you're like basically repairing or eliminating your debt. Why is that?
So I'm a very visual person, and every time I look at this subject, one of the things I think of is those old Tom and Jerry commercials or cartoons when is in a boat full of holes, and rather than fixing the holes, he just keeps sticking the fingers in the holes, hoping the water stops. And he slows down the water, but doesn't resolve the issue. So what happens is just just think about it this way. So let's say you have a credit card, and you owe them $1,000.
Okay.
Most people don't know that the minimum payment on a credit card is either 2% or $25 of the balance, whichever one is lower. 2% of the balance or $25,
Now,
whichever one.
now before you continue, there's
Yeah,
something very important to recognize about consumer debt and when it comes to credit cards. We understand that there's a difference between fixed and revolving forms of debt, right? So
absolutely.
before you continue, just kind of touch on that real quick so that way we can keep going with the conversation, but they're able to follow along with us.
So there's two types of debt. Okay, there's fixed debt and then there's revolving debt. Fixed debt is going to be a debt that is pre-negotiated at the beginning. Hey Prince, you lend me $1,000 and I'll pay you
Okay.
back $1,100.
All right.
Where time is not being taken into consideration in the repayment. And then there's something called revolving debt or
Right.
compound debt, where what happens is based on the time of repayment, the amount of the repayment increases because the interest rate gets charged on top of the current balance. Now, what happens is if you're not paying off the total balance,
Hmm.
then interest is compounding on top of interest, on top of interest, on top of interest.
I remember watching one of our training and development videos, and in that we talk about the rule of 72, the banker's rule,
Absolutely.
and which Albert Einstein called the most powerful thing in the financial
In financial
universe.
literacy, absolutely.
You know, now talk about the rule of 72, and like especially when it like relates to debt, and that one thing that you said, hey Prince, let me borrow $1,000, I'll pay you back 1,100. Where'd the extra $100 come from?
Absolutely. Now, the word interest is the interest to interest someone to hurry up and incentivize and pay you back. Now, as far as
Okay.
a compound interest is concerned, the rule of 72 explains how compound interest works. And it
All
says
right.
that if you take any interest rate and you divide it by 72, that's how long it's going to take for that money to double. So let's say you have a credit card and they're charging you 24% in interest.
Wow.
72 divided by 24 means that money is going to double every 3 years, which
three,
means
3 years.
now you look at that and you say, okay, well, $1,000, if it's doubling every 3 years, then 3 years from now you owe them 2,000. 6 years from now you now owe them 4,000. 9 years from now you now owe them 8,000. So what it's doing is it's doubling on itself every 2 years. Every 3 years. I mean, have you ever had a credit card and you thought to yourself, man, I pay off this credit card or I pay this credit card every month and the balance never goes down?
Right.
And it's because, yeah, you may be putting a gauze on it, but it's hemorrhaging at a very quick rate.
Well, we definitely want to stop it from bleeding out, and like one of the
Absolutely.
ways that we want people to understand how to stop it from bleeding out is
The order of payment.
The order of payment.
So one of the things that we teach our families is something called debt stacking. And
Okay.
what debt stacking is it says, okay, look, you have multiple lines of credit, and what we're going to do is we're going to send the minimum payment to everybody except for one.
Except for one. Why except for one?
So what we're going to do is we're going to systematically attack one at a time. So all those additional payments you were scattering around, the $30 you were sending to Victoria's Secret, the $60 you were sending to Capital One, we're going to take those $150 you had spread out, and we're going to attack the first one.
So I understand it. So everyone follows along. You're giving an example where someone is paying $150 in additional payments. So they've already got like the budget for their debt,
Correct.
plus the budget or the additional money that they're adding to their budget to pay off multiple debts at the same time. And then
Correct. So then what happens is a lot of times people are like, oh, well, I'll pay off the smallest one first. Then that is a blanket answer to a very specific problem. But one of the things that we are able to do is we're able to attack specifically what order based on the interest rate, based on the amount owed, based on the terms of that debt. And we're able to tell you mathematically what order to pay off the debt so that you're able to pay it off quicker.
okay.
And in most cases, using the same amount of money, just changing the order of the payment, we're able to show people how to pay off the debt in a quarter of the time, if not 5, 6, 10 times faster, just by changing the order of the debt. Because as you go paying off one of the cards, you maintain the same monthly budget, and then you send it to the next one, and then the
So
next one.
okay, so like let's say that we're putting 150. We have three debts. We
Mhm.
take the $150 spread and we put it onto one debt. And
So
one is
let's go specific. So let's say that you have a monthly budget to pay off your debt of $300.
$300 budget. Okay.
And each card is asking you for $50 as a minimum payment. So you have
Minimum payment.
150 to each card.
Okay.
You were normally sending them an additional 50, so you were sending 100, 100, 100. So what we say, look, you're going to send the minimum payment to all three cards, and the $150 you're going to send to the first card. Once that card is done, you're now going to send the $50 that you were sending to that card plus the 150 additional, so now it's 200. You're going to send to the following card, and then once that one's done, you're going to send to the following card. So what it does, otherwise known as the snowball effect, it goes picking up
All
impulse.
the small pieces of the debt at a time.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And in doing so, again, you're able to pay off the debt in a quarter of the time using the same amount of money, just by changing the order of the payments.
I'm glad you also mentioned that, because the other day I'm doing a financial needs analysis for one of our clients, and she had $25,000 worth of debt, almost in every month, $800 of a budget going to a debt, and the way that she had it situated, our system showed that she would be paying the debt off finally at age 149 years old. The way that she was doing it currently.
Absolutely.
But after the FNA, she actually saw she could pay the debt off in the next 5 years, save herself over, I think it was $90,000 worth in interest payments from doing it the way that she was going to do it before.
Because that's a big thing. People think, okay, well, I have $25,000 worth of debt, but it's going to continue to hemorrhage. So yeah, you borrowed 25, but you have to pay back 100.
Right.
I mean, if we were sitting across the table from each other and I told you, you lend me $1, I'm going to pay you back 4.
Okay.
I don't know. That doesn't sound like good business to me. But because of the fact that it's out of sight and out of mind, we tend to ignore it when we're talking about the credit card world.
Right. Well, debt is something that everybody wants to kind of talk about. So
Mhm.
for those of you who may be viewing this, whether live or on the live TV later on, definitely slide into the DM. Let's we can't give a blanket description of how the debt stacking system works. If
Absolutely.
you want to see how it can work for you to pay off you and eliminate your debt, we need to talk. Okay.
Absolutely.
So
And the education and the assistance is always free.
always free. So
So the next thing we talk about is building intergenerational wealth. And unfortunately, this is a sore subject.
it's a very, very sore subject.
For
in my opinion.
Hispanics and Blacks, we think that the only way that we're going to create intergenerational wealth is through life insurance.
Okay.
And let's be clear, life insurance is one thing, but building wealth, assets, building, having in your home,
Mhm.
building equity. These are things that the wealthy people do, but unfortunately, it's something that is not second nature to us the way it is to the wealthy.
Right.
So we teach building intergenerational wealth, and we teach how to get to retirement.
Hmm.
And the biggest mistake whenever we're dealing with retirement is not understanding our destination.
Okay.
Because a lot of times we'll state, I'd like to retire.
Hmm.
And when I ask you when you want to retire, what do you think the number one answer is?
Today.
Tomorrow. Which again
Cut
is
that check, baby. Let me
absolutely,
out the game.
which I understand and I respect that. So
Right.
what I tell my clients, I say, okay, great. You're here. Do you have $2 to $3 million saved up?
That's a hard question for a lot of people to say yes to.
Most of the time it's no. So you're here, you want to be here.
Okay.
So my goal is to help you find that happy spot. Now, let me be clear: retirement is not an age. Retirement is a point where monetarily you have enough money to live off the interest of your investments.
So
Now,
basically, having enough money to where we don't have to go back to work because money is a necessity, right?
absolutely,
Okay.
and it's something where my wife has had the benefit of being retired for 2 years, and when I talk to her
At what
coworkers,
age?
at 40.
At 40. We could talk about how he did that another time,
Absolutely.
but
But again, it's not an age, it's a number.
right.
So for us, what we do is we figure out what the destination is. Okay, if you had no debt, if you had no mortgage, no credit cards, no student
Okay.
loans, and you were able to live exactly the way you want, how much would it cost you a month to live exactly the way you want? Now, most people give me a number, but we could do a budget and we throw in, okay, you're now in retirement. What is going to occupy your day?
Hmm.
Because, ladies and gentlemen, daytime television will kill you. So, if you do
It's
not do
killing a lot
something,
of people already.
so if you're not doing something to occupy your day
Right.
and enjoy your retirement, your brain is going to go into atrophy and you're going to end up dying young, not
Right.
because your body gave out, but it's because your brain is no longer stimulated.
Now, I want to interject real quick and just
Mhm.
say that, like, for a lot of my clients that I have, some of them have retired at a fairly young age from city employment jobs like police officers, firefighters, guys and gals who are our heroes in within this country, right?
Hmm.
And from the lack of activity or the mental stimulation, not only is the brain atrophying very quickly, but the body changes so fast. And then throw into the equation a financial emergency occurs and then they didn't plan for it. Now they got to come back out of retirement with a slower moving operating
Absolutely.
system and machine.
Absolutely.
So how are we helping people, prevent that?
So again, our goal is to help them figure out how they want to retire, and then we state, okay, um, you want to retire, but in today money. So let's say it's $5,500 a month.
Okay.
Well, we have to account for inflation because
Can't
the,
forget inflation.
because the cost of gas today is not what it's going to be 30 years from now.
Right.
So we're able to calculate exactly how much it's going to cost 20, 30 years from now, depending on when it is that you want to retire.
Right.
And by us understanding how much we need on a monthly basis, then we could create something called a financial independence number.
Okay.
Now, the financial independence number is going to tell us exactly how much you need to put away so that you have enough so that you can take interest off of that and the money doesn't deplete.
So let's simplify that for those that may have been a little complicated, right? Your fin is how much money you need to live without having to stress or worry about money, right?
Absolutely.
And for each person, we understand that number is going to be different from person to person.
Totally different. Someone
Right.
may say, "Hey, I want to travel the world," so their budget in retirement may be $6, 7, $8,000
Right.
a month. Where I've had clients that tell me, "Hey, look, if you give me a cooler full of beer, you give me a
And a
bucket full of
fishing ride.
crickets, you
Let's
give me
go.
a bucket full of crickets, and you
Right.
give me a pier, I am a happy man." Awesome. I've had clients tell me, "Hey, if I could go play golf 2, 3 times a week, I'm happy." Great.
And I've got people who are like, I want to live in a yurt someplace in the deep mountains of middle America where it's just
Absolutely.
me, my family, our dog, and a rifle. Yeah.
Absolutely. Or I've had clients that tell me, hey, I want to be able to give of my time back to my
Right.
church. So, whatever it is you want to do, again, we figured out how much it's going to cost. So now we have a number,
Hmm.
right? A destination.
Okay.
Now, by us having a destination, what's going to end up happening is what everybody does when they put in a destination into Waze. For
Mm.
those of us that live in South Florida and we want to go to Orlando, Waze tells us, hey, it's going to take you 4 hours to
Four
get there.
hours. But
The minute it tells you 4 hours, what does everybody do? Challenge accepted. I will
mm,
get there in 3.5 hours while stopping for donuts at a rest stop and a pee break and a coffee break and still make it prior to the 4 hours. Why?
hey,
Because we now understand the destination
right.
where we're traveling. So we could go ahead and apply that same principle into planning for our retirement. If I told you, hey, you need this amount of money in order to retire at 62, but if you put away an extra $50 a month, you could retire at 57. Wouldn't you want to know that now rather than look back and be like, man, had I known, I would have, one less night at Chili's or, you know,
Yeah.
one less pair of shoes every couple of months, whatever the case is.
Right. One less Birka bag or whatever it's called. I don't even know what the
Right.
fashionable stuff is these days, but
But by knowing your financial independence number, by knowing how much you need to put away,
right.
it's going to allow you to get there. And then as financial consultants, we're able to look at all of the assets and everything you have available to you. Where you work, do they offer you retirement?
Right.
Do they do match? Are you getting your discount on your taxes for contributing to your retirement account?
Right.
What is the situation? And let's take advantage of everything you have available to you, because number one rule of finance is OPM, other people's money.
Other people's money.
Leverage, not only money that you're earning in the investment arena, but money you're earning from matching of your employer.
And I'm glad you mentioned that
Mm-hmm.
because, when we talk about retirement and retirement income, a lot of people kind of like put this off because they're thinking, oh, well, like I'm putting into a 401k. But what's the downside or the danger to being like kind of complacent with, oh, I'm just putting it into a 401k? Does that mean that it's going to naturally like grow or like do anything?
So here's the thing: if you've never sat down with a financial professional and
Hmm.
you just have a 401k at work, I highly recommend that you sit down with someone and do some planning, because um, as of a couple of years ago, the Department of Labor created something called target date funds,
Okay.
where based on your age, they've created portfolios that have a mix of stocks and bonds based on your age
Okay.
and based on the exposure that they want, so that you don't have too much stocks or too much bonds. The problem with that is that it's not customized to you, Prince.
Okay.
It's customized to everybody Prince's age,
Okay.
whether they be risk adverse, whether they prefer a more aggressive portfolio. So they assume that everybody Prince's age
Right.
prefers the same investment,
So it's a one size fits all.
Absolutely. So what we're able to do for you is, one, help you understand your risk tolerance, give
Okay.
you a little bit of education how all of these things work. And then what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to help customize the portfolio to your understandings
Right.
and your wishes, and help you get to where it is that you want to go.
And that, when we're helping our clients basically cherry pick, what's in their best financial interest,
Hmm.
right? What do How much are we charging for that again?
Again, the financial education is free,
I just
no
want to
matter
make
who your
sure,
platform is.
just in case you didn't catch it the first time.
Absolutely. And again, our goal is to help you maximize whatever it is that you have available to you.
Right.
It's not just, well, you should open up a Roth IRA if you have a 401k at work or whatever the case is. Our goal is to always help you maximize what it is that you have, so that you get the best results for you and your family.
And because we were talking about the fin, when most of our clients that have like these 401ks or these some type of retirement plan of sorts, doesn't that help us show them how much we can shorten that gap to get to that financial independence number?
Absolutely. Again, you want to retire tomorrow, so you're here. Your assets say that you're here. Our goal is to help you find that happy medium
Right.
as soon as possible. Our intention is to get you to retire as young as possible, so that you can travel the world or do whatever it is that you want to do at your age and at your pace,
Right.
not what your money allows.
Okay. So
So,
now, we've talked about eliminating debt, you know which is really a good way like to help people, especially under and also the importance of the rule of 72, which
Hmm.
explains compound interest and how your creditors are actually working against you, looking to basically double their money. But now, okay, when we talk about retirement and we're talking about, retirement programs for people who have normal, regular 9 to 5 jobs, we don't want to leave anyone out who's like myself and yourself. We're independent contractors.
Absolutely.
So, how do we take care of our clients who are out there like us as 1099 independent contractors making the bang happen?
So here's the thing that most people don't realize. So as an employee, if you make $100,000, you pay taxes on 100,000, and your
Okay.
Social Security is based on 100,000. As a business owner, you make 100,000. You said you had 80,000 in
Okay.
expenses, so you pay taxes on 20. And Uncle Sam knows that you're playing that game. You're playing it. He's playing it. He understands that.
Everybody's playing the game, but who's playing it better is the question.
Right. So what happens is, as a result of that, Uncle Sam understands that your benefits are going to be based on a much smaller number than the income that you're used to living off of.
Okay.
So for that reason, he has to allow you as a business owner to put way more money into your retirement account than your employee does, to offset the fact that your Social Security benefits are going to be significantly less in ratio than your employees. And for that reason, there's certain things that can be implemented as a small business owner, such as a SEP IRA, a simple IRA, and other things that will reduce your tax liabilities while contributing more to your retirement account, which, as a business owner, having a healthy retirement account
Right.
is going to help you when you're getting a loan. Showing that you have an account with collateral is always going to make you more attractive to the banks.
Right.
And having that money that you would have given away to Uncle Sam, but now you're redirecting into your retirement account, is a much better way to go.
Now, I'm glad you also said that because, like, there are a lot of people who are independent driver, independent contractors with Uber,
Mm-hmm.
with DoorDash, with Lyft, with all these different ride share services and food share services that are out there. There are really a lot of people who are, and because like these types of part-time hustles have become so much more common, there are a lot more people out there who are actually lacking
Yeah.
a sufficient retirement vehicle. So what does that mean for them? Like how?
Unfortunately, if again, going back to what we said at the beginning, if you fail to plan, you're going to plan to fail.
That
So
part.
so if you don't have someone else taking care of your retirement, you're going to have to take care of yourself. So again, that's something that we could step in, and we'll be more than happy to sit down with you one on one and help you look at your whole financial
Right.
situation, not just that, not just savings, but the whole picture, so that you can get to where you want to be. And that kind of leads us to the next thing.
Right. Well, before we get to the next thing,
Hmm.
because for all of our independent contractors out there, we want you to just remember, for as hard as you're working right now to make the money, do we really want it to be something that gets lost in the event that the unexpected happens? Because I just want to kind of go back to this.
And no, and again, here's the thing, guys. Um, at the end of the day, when it's time as a small business owner for you to do your taxes, a lot of times you're going to go see an accountant, and their job is to close the books. And unless you have a large liability, their
Mhm.
focus isn't to figure out a way to lower your tax liabilities.
Right.
So by sitting down with a financial advisor as well as your accountant, they can work in unison together. I love how wealthy people have teams.
Right.
Their accountant talks to their lawyer, talks to
Right.
their financial advisor.
Yes. Yes.
Well, given the platform that we're in, we can be part of your team, where we're helping you work with your accountant to lower your tax
Right.
liabilities, to increase your collateral for future loans, to make it a way so that you as a business owner can retire without having to sell your business,
Right.
or have to get your business to a point where where you can bring someone in to replace you. Why
Or
not have enough assets? Just
or even having to depend on, like you said, into our next topic, having to depend on credit cards, which is what a lot of small business owners end up doing. Like when you have a couple of great months and then you weren't necessarily stacking that 20% aside because times were good. You should have been having the mindset of the ant who keeps storing away for the winter time, right?
mm-hmm,
But we're thinking like grasshoppers, almost hopping sale to sale, transaction to transaction, and
absolutely.
we're forgetting that like Game
We
of
need to pay
Thrones,
ourselves first.
winter is coming, right?
Absolutely.
So how do we help our clients with their credit and like
So let's be clear, we are not a credit repair company.
okay,
Again,
I'm glad you
as
said that.
financial advisors, our goal is to provide you the financial education. So, what makes up your credit score? And this is something that unfortunately most people don't realize. People just think, well, if I pay my bills on time,
Right,
that's enough. But payment history, yes, does play the biggest part.
right,
It's 35% of your credit score. But the next thing is amounts owed, so or otherwise known as the utilization rate. Where if you
okay.
have $10,000 worth of credit cards, but you have a $6,000 balance, you have a 60% utilization.
That's not good, is it?
Absolutely not. So you want to keep that number under 30%. Okay.
And why 30%?
Well, I didn't come up with that, but that is a threshold where banks look at where they want to make sure that you're not over leveraging yourself,
Okay.
and they want to make sure that you can afford to pay off the outstanding debt. So that
Ah,
30% is a benchmark where if you creep over it, it kind of sets off some red flags.
okay.
That being said, you want to pay off your debt before the statement is paid.
Hmm.
And let's be clear, guys, you don't have to wait for your statement. You know that if you didn't pay off your debt from last month,
Hey,
guess what? Capital One wants their money. So there's no need for you to wait for the statement to print.
right.
There's no need for you to figure out what the new balance is. If you're going to make your payment,
Okay.
unless you're getting actually very close to the balance where you're going to pay it off, then you need to know how much it is that you owe. But if you know that the payment, that the statement generates on the third, why wait till the fourth, the fifth, or the sixth to make your payments?
Right.
No, make your payments earlier,
Right.
and that way you're ahead of the game, and it's going to actually lower your utilization because it's going to show like if the payment was already made before the bill printed. So
Now,
don't wait for the due date. Print it before the or pay before the bill is printed.
right now, like I know there may be those out there who are wondering, well, like what part of the month should I pay, the minimum balance on, and then at what part of the month should I maybe put the additional balance on, so that way I can
Well, this
do
goes
what we
back to the debt stacking
right.
and showing you what order you're going to pay so we know
Okay.
which card it is that we're going to pay off quickly. But again, if you have a plan set in place,
Hmm.
why wait till the 15th, 16th, 17th of the month? You should be, paying your debt off at the beginning of the month. That way it happens before the bills are generated, and it's going to go ahead and positively affect your utilization rate on your cards.
Now, let's talk about something that we both saw like a couple of weeks ago,
Hmm.
when one of our guys in the office actually had one of their clients had recently passed. The family puts together a GoFundMe, and then they max out the credit cards to have to afford the funeral expenses. And then what did the credit card statement say in regards to the interest rate?
Oh, I believe it was 29.99%.
And it said, oh, we will wipe the interest rate if you pay it all at one time. So like now, how many people do you know, or I know, that, or you guys in the that are watching right now, how many people do you know that can actually say, well, I took this much from my credit card, I can afford to pay back the entire balance every month.
Absolutely. It's usually business owners that are using it because of the fact that they understand that they have some jobs that are
Right.
open that are running on a 30-day or 60-day pay cycle. But just regular people like us and everybody else, unfortunately, it's not something that's feasible. That's like, oh, I'm going to put 5,000 on the credit card and I'll pay it off in a couple of days. So just,
Right.
it's one of those things that, again, paying it off as soon as possible so that you could go ahead and lower the utilization rate.
So,
So,
so
mhm.
in the chat, there's someone who says that they maxed their credit card out. If we had a client like that who showed up and they needed our type of assistance,
Mhm.
what were one of the things that we would say? Because I know this is something you say very often when it comes to debt. What's the number one thing you don't do when we're handling your credit and your debt?
So here's the first thing I recommend. The reason why we are dependent on credit cards is because we don't have a reserve.
Okay.
Why do we tap into credit cards? Well, something broke, and we don't have a well to go to.
Most people don't have $1,000 to handle most emergencies that just pop up in life.
Absolutely. And what ends up happening, the biggest mistake everybody makes, is tax return time,
Mm,
where they get their tax return and they pay off their credit card.
right.
But the next time they have an emergency, they go back to the credit card.
Right back to the same well.
Absolutely. So what you should be doing is you should be taking your tax returns, putting it into an interest-bearing account, having it grow as a reserve, so that if you do have an emergency, rather than tapping into your credit card,
Mhm.
you have something where you can take your money from.
Right now, remember when you consider that interest-bearing savings account, we have to also remember that the rule of 72 benefits you and works in your advantage too. However, when it comes to a high interest savings account, is it really doing a lot for their money if they're just putting it into the bank?
Absolutely not. And somebody made a comment as far as some of us live off of your credit cards,
Mm,
and unfortunately, that is a very common story. But at the end of the day, if you're borrowing $1 and you're paying back $1.30, that's not a very healthy relationship. Now,
no.
again, it would be very hypocritical of me, because I don't know your situation, to cause that. Now, am I saying not to use credit cards? No, absolutely. My
No.
wife, her Macy's card, she uses it because it has a lot of points, it has a lot of benefits.
Right.
But what she does is, whenever she goes and purchases something at Macy's, she'll go ahead and put it on her credit card, and then immediately tell the cashier, "Yeah, I want to make a payment on my account for the amount that I just went ahead and
Mm,
spent."
that's smart.
So you are still using the card. For example, I have a couple of credit cards that I use for the points. I have right now one card that has like $500 of cash rewards.
Mhm.
Realistically, the $500 are sitting there and accumulating, but it's something that I use it, I pay it, I use it, I pay it. The issue is not using your credit cards. The issue is sustaining a prolonged amount over a period of time.
Mm. that
Uh,
you that you're not paying off as quickly as you're creating the debt, right? So like
Absolutely.
what I also hear you saying is like if you're going to create the debt on the credit card,
Mhm.
be also ready to have the money on the debit card
Absolutely.
to make the immediate payment.
And again, you want to use your credit cards. Absolutely. You want to keep your utilization
Hmm.
rate under 30%,
Right.
because it is something you need. And we're going to talk about what goes into a credit score. And we'll go into that. So I
Well, let's
love
talk
the
about it.
comments. So
Let's go into
the
it.
next thing that goes into it is the length of credit cards. So one of the biggest mistakes that people make is, once they've paid off their credit cards, they want to go ahead and cancel the card.
Okay.
But what you don't realize is that 15% of your credit score is the length of history, which means if you're paying off the card,
And you get rid of the card,
you're lowering
your history.
your history, and it's going to go ahead and negatively impact you. So you want to make sure that your credit history is as long as possible. As long as you're keeping the cards in rotation every 3 to 6 months,
Right.
they're not going to shut it off. And just because you have the card doesn't mean you have to sustain a balance on it. You just go ahead and keep using it and paying it off, and using it and paying it off. And again, if you need it for a couple of weeks to get you until your paycheck comes in, there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is when you keep a consistent balance and just have it keep going from one month to
Month
another,
to
because
another.
now you're paying back more than what you're borrowing.
And again, that interest rate is working against you. All
Mm-hmm.
right, like when we put ourselves into that type of position, we're working against ourselves. So,
Absolutely.
and like not to mention, I like what one of the things we heard in our training the other day is we're borrowing from money from tomorrow to pay off debts that we could totally either go without today or better manage today.
One of the most profound things I've ever heard was from Will Smith, that says people have jobs they hate to buy stuff they don't need to impress people they don't like.
Wow.
But I mean, it is what it is.
I'm
So
glad it wasn't the other thing that he said recently.
keep my wife's
Well, hey, but we won't even talk about that. But we got to keep it somewhat entertaining.
absolutely. So
But
the length of history plays a really big role. The next
right,
thing is new credit. The last thing you guys want to do is make a lot of applications for credit cards,
right.
and yes, trust
Why
me,
is
I
that?
understand that because credit inquiries, believe it or not, negatively impact your credit. So
Mm,
I understand that TJ Maxx and Ross and Walmart and everybody's going to ask you if you want to apply for the credit card, but constant inquiries on your credit are going to negatively impact it. Okay, so try to stay away from constant. You shouldn't be doing a credit inquiry more than once every
mhm.
6 months. because there's no need for it. And if you are going to apply for something, make sure that it's something you actually want.
Right.
So,
I know we've had a really good conversation on this topic of financial wellness and financial literacy, and I think we can definitely talk more about this, but we would be doing everyone who's watching right now a huge disservice because you probably missed out on a lot of things that we talked about. So we definitely need to come back and do like another one of these
absolutely.
collaborations.
And again, we could do a one on one with anyone if you guys like. Just reach out to Prince or myself,
Absolutely.
and we'll be more than happy to do so.
Be sure to follow this guy on Instagram at Flash Rick. Okay, at Flash Rick, FLASHRICK. All right,
Absolutely.
Ricardo Garcia. That's this guy. This is my business partner. This guy has got almost a decade of experience in the world of investments. Uh, uh, he's a financial physician guru. He's helping me learn a lot.
I call it a SME. And as a matter of fact, yes. So the APRs on retail stores is usually very high. It's through Synchrony Bank. Synchrony
Right.
Bank has most of
Ooh,
the retail stores.
that's rooms
But
to
again,
go, isn't it?
that is Rooms to Go.
Ah.
That is Victoria's Secret. That
Oh.
is Best Buy. So
Oh.
most retail stores have Synchrony Bank as their provider. And again, nothing against Synchrony Bank, and,
Right.
and credit cards have a very important place in our community.
Yes.
It's just an issue of us teaching you how to effectively use it in your favor rather than in your detriment.
Right.
And the last thing that goes into your credit, 10% of your credit score, is your credit mix. If you've got 5, 6, 7 credit cards,
Right,
but you
right.
have no car loans, you have no mortgage or anything like that,
Yeah, too much of the same kind.
absolutely, it's going to actually negatively impact. So you want to have a nice mix of some loans as well as some credit cards as
Now,
well.
and think about that: a diversification of debt and a diversification method for generating wealth. And of course, again, we've spoken about it, but when it comes to investments, we have to be very careful about having that discussion because, again, we that's very specific to the individual and their interest and their desires.
Absolutely. The question was, am I a financial advisor? So let's discuss that because in my industry, there are a lot of titles. Okay. There's something called a certified financial planner. That is a specific designation.
Mhm.
I do not hold that designation. I'm a financial advisor. I am a licensed life insurance agent. I am a licensed investment agent. I am a licensed investment principal, which means I am licensed not only to do investments myself, but also manage others to do it. And
Soon, this
as
guy
well.
soon. Okay.
And I'm also a licensed mortgage broker. If you
Yes.
ever interact with someone and they're talking to you about investments and you want to make sure that they are licensed to give you the financial advice that they're giving you,
Write this down.
write this website down. It is www.brokercheck.com.
One more time.
Brokercheck.com.
Okay. BROCK.
No. BROKER.
Excuse me. There we go.
CHECK.com. That is from FINRA, the Financial Industry Regulatory Administration. That'll tell you if the person you're interacting is licensed to give you investment advice, one. Two, or are they just a life insurance agent?
Right.
Unfortunately, amongst middle America, a lot of the ones that are giving financial advice are just glorified life insurance agents. And there's nothing wrong with that, but
No.
stay in your lane.
Yes, and we also want to make sure that we explain that the reason why we gave you that caveat is also because on social media there's a big trend right now of people talking about wealthy ways,
Infinite banking
systems.
index universal lives, things of that nature. If you ever want to know if the person giving you that incredible advice is licensed to do so, just go ahead and go on brokercheck.com, pull up their name, and see if they're actually
An
uh,
investment
advisor. No, I am not a bookkeeper. I know my lane. I have an incredible bookkeeper. If you want, I'll reach out to Prince or reach out to myself. I'll be more than happy to refer you.
We know a guy.
Actually, we know a girl. She
We know
is
a gal.
incredible. But I'll be more than happy to refer you. So
Absolutely.
here's the thing, guys. There are 3 companies that look at your credit. Okay, the first one is Experian. The second one is Equifax. The third one is TransUnion. Now, when you're purchasing a home, they're always going to look at the middle score of the 3 reporting agencies. So my recommendation is you should have your account with Credit Karma. Now, keep in mind, you want to take that with a grain of salt. One, they're only looking at two of the three reporting agencies.
Right.
Not to mention the information that they're providing you is just to get you in the ballpark of where it is
Yes.
that you're looking at.
Yes.
So if you have anything derogatory that you weren't aware of, you'll be able to see it there. But just take it with a grain of salt. Understand that Credit Karma, whatever score it says there, assume 20 points less just so that you feel comfortable until you actually run an official credit report.
Okay.
And again, yes, the credit score is not accurate. Correct.
Right.
Again, I want to get you in there and look not as much as the credit score, but see if there's anything derogatory or see if there's anything you should be aware of so that you can address it personally.
Right, because that's also a very good point, and that's something that we like to express to our clients too.
Mhm.
Because again, we're not credit repair; we help
In no way,
correct
shape, or form.
the behavior that creates the debt, right?
Absolutely.
So, like when it comes to our clients who say like, "Hey, I want to invest, but I got like bad credit, or like I have like a bunch of bad information," what do we tell those clients that are like, "Well, what do I do? How can you help me there?"
So again, our thing is to look at what it is that's causing the negative score. Is it your age?
Mhm.
Is it your credit mix? Is it your utilization? Is there anything derogatory? Let's figure out what's being said out there.
Right.
Again, taking it with a grain of salt, okay? And then being able to address it. Let's figure out what the problem is, how it is that we can resolve it,
Right.
and attack that. So again, yes, I totally agree that the credit score on Credit Karma is not accurate in no way, shape,
No,
or
not at
form.
all.
Am I advocating for Credit Karma as far as a credit score system?
Right.
I am advocating for them as far as a free way to look at where you stand
Across the board.
with the stuff that is
Right.
being reported to the credit agencies. So I 100% agree that do not take what Credit Karma is saying as your credit score
It's not the gospel.
as the gospel.
Right.
Take it with a grain of salt. What we want to see is what is appearing.
Right.
What's your credit age? What's your credit mix? What's your history?
Right.
What's your utilization rate? These are all things that we know to be accurate. The score that they're showing there, your credit score is not going up 60, 80
Right.
points every 15 days. So again, take that with a grain of salt.
And the one of the questions was like, do we know why they do that? Oftentimes, it's because there's a lot of like either actual
Yes. Here, no,
applicant-
no.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the answer that nobody wants you to know. It's marketing.
It really is.
It's marketing. They're not financial. I mean, they're not mortgage brokers. They're not loan officers.
They have no vested interest.
They want to get you excited because if you notice, if you go to Credit Karma,
Right.
there's a lot of advertising for credit cards. Hey, you got a 700 credit score. Apply for a credit card. Apply for a loan. All these different things. They want to
Mhm.
automatically get you excited. So
Right.
again, let me be 1000% clear. I am not advocating Credit Karma
Right.
in any way, shape, or form for the score. You want to look at the behaviors
Right.
that are being reported so that if there is anything that we need to know, we can help you address it.
Now,
Absolutely. Yeah, they're selling credit cards, they're selling loans, they're selling. Hey, man, if you're not selling, you're being sold.
and it absolutely right. And you know, are you buying the BS that they're selling?
Absolutely.
Number one, if you don't like the deal that you've been getting, and you haven't figured it out on your own, reasons why you need to talk with us. All right?
Absolutely.
So, and like, you know, I saw it come up in the chat also, third parties. Yeah, you have third parties that, you know, take inaccurate information and put it onto and report it to the credit reporting agencies.
And that's
the
why
time.
there's a Fair Credit Reporting Act
There you go.
that was created for our protection. So again, I kind of feel like we're beating a dead horse, but yes, what we want to look at is the behaviors,
Right.
not as much as the credit score. And what's your FICO score? The FICO score is again, it's a score that was created by an organization called Fair Isaac.
Mm-hmm.
Fair Isaac Credit Organization. And what they do is they take the information from these three agencies and they create a score to show your worthiness.
Yes.
Again, take it all with a grain of salt. But by you knowing this, you're going to be able to make a much better decision. Okay.
Yes.
And then the last thing we want to talk to you guys is about life insurance. And let me be clear, there are a bunch of different types of life insurance out there. But unfortunately, there's a lot of ignorance when it comes to stuff like that. The first thing everybody tells me is, oh, I've got stuff for free at work. and that is absolutely wonderful. What you have is something called a group insurance policy.
Now, what does that mean in plain English?
Let me be clear. You do not have an individual life insurance policy. You have what is called a group plan.
Again,
Now,
we're going to clarify this for you because
yes.
this is very confusing to most people who say they understand their employee benefits. However, this sometimes goes over their heads.
So here's what happens. Whenever you have a group plan, okay, the master policy is owned by your employer. Okay. And then you have what's called a certificate of insurance or a certificate of participation.
Okay.
This certificate of insurance or certificate of participation
Right.
is based on the fact that you have to be employed in order to be part of this plan.
Okay. So as
Now,
long as I'm employed, I'm covered.
if you chose to enroll,
If I choose to enroll.
correct.
So I have to choose to enroll.
Correct.
And when do I
Now,
choose to enroll?
either at the time of employment or during open enrollment.
And
Okay?
that's different for a lot of different companies, isn't it?
Correct. It's all depending on the plan. Now,
Okay.
and it also has to do whether it's contributory or non-contributory. Now, when you do have a plan through your employer, what you have to take into consideration is that the employer is receiving a tax benefit or a tax deduction on the cost of insuring you up to $50,000.
50,000.
That is not a company specific thing. That is a law. Okay.
And that's industry wide.
That is industry wide. So what ends up happening is the following. If they're providing you insurance up to 50,000, they get a tax deduction. If you have insurance over $50,000, then what happens is the cost of that insurance gets passed on to you, the employee, as additional income. So it is going to be tacked onto your income for the year, and you're going to have to pay income tax on it. So if you do have something at work, okay, again, the first $50,000 is tax deductible to your employer. Anything over that is taxed to you as income. Now, there is something that is called supplemental insurance that does give you the ability to get either 3 times or 5 times your base salary.
And a lot of people say, "Oh, I can also get, I pay very little for the insurance that I get at my
So
job."
we're gonna talk about that. So what happens is, yes, you could get 3 times or 5 times your your income, which is a wonderful thing,
Right.
because again, it is cheap. But again, take into consideration that it's on the stipulation that you are employed. Now, what are the 3 reasons why you're no longer employed? You either quit, get sick, or get fired.
Right.
Okay. Now, if you get sick or get fired, chances are you're not going to be able to afford the insurance outside of it, outside of your employment. So, so just take that with a grain of salt. It is cheap while you're there. Now, that being said, okay, if you do separate from employment,
What kind of insurance
you can convert to what's either called whole life or universal, which is usually significantly more expensive than term.
So for in that example of the 50,000, how much typically does $50,000 worth of insurance
Depending on the
cost?
age, can be several $100s a month.
Several $100s a month
Right.
for whole life cash value life insurance.
Right. But again, I don't sell that stuff, so I could not tell you or speak accurately of it. But again, yes, you would be able to replace for a whole life or a universal life.
And even like the index universal life policies, these are similar kind of
Correct.
types
Again,
of insurance. Yeah?
index universal life, whole life, variable life, those are all whole life insurance policies.
So now you said that you don't sell that stuff.
Correct.
What kind of insurance do we advocate and provide?
We sell pure insurance. We sell what's called term insurance.
And why is it called pure insurance with term?
Because with term insurance, it's like your health, your homeowners, and your car insurance. It is insurance for a period of time. Your car insurance, you pay for it 6 months or 12 months at a time. If you don't crash, you don't get money back.
Right.
Your health insurance, if you don't get sick, you don't get money back. Your homeowners insurance, if your house doesn't burn down, you don't get money back. So it is pure insurance. And it's for a period of time, but unlike home, health, and car, where it's 6 months or 12 months, with life, it's years, 10, 15, 20, 30 years.
All right.
And just having it doesn't mean anything unless you know exactly why you have it. But we'll talk about that in a second. So there are a couple of types of insurance. So permanent insurance, and the reason why it's called permanent insurance is because it is designed to stay permanently until the age of 100, okay? And it is usually sold as an insurance with a built-in savings component. Now, that being said, uh, again, I will not defame any company or any product, but I would highly recommend that if you are going to look into it, look into the cash value page and see what actually you have in
Okay.
comparison to what it is that you're paying into it.
Now,
Because
why is the cash value page important? Because a lot of people, we know how what that means because we're talking office talk.
so cash value is the liquidity you have, that savings component
Liquidity.
that they told you,
Okay,
the
savings
money that
component.
you could take out a loan against.
All
But
right.
whenever someone tells me I could take out a loan against my own money, I kind of cringe, because if I went to the bank right now and said, "Hey, I have $10,000 in my bank account. I would like to take a loan against my $10,000 rather than taking a withdrawal, and I have to pay interest on it," it doesn't seem copacetic to me.
Okay.
But again, that's how it's being sold.
I
Now,
mean, because like, would you really pay interest to borrow your own money? Would you pay extra money to pay yourself back for your own money?
it doesn't make sense to me. But
I just want to
again,
know.
it doesn't make sense to me. But again, they're gonna sell it that way. But
Okay.
what you do need to look at whenever you're looking at a cash value page, and it's usually the second or third page of the policy, there's a column that says surrender value or cash value. What is the actual money you have in there? And based on experience, more often than not, the first 3 to 5 years of everything you're paying into that policy goes towards the fees and the commissions of the person who
Okay.
sold it to you. And again, this isn't me defaming that insurance. Just I want you to understand. Look at that surrender page and look and see if the amount of money you're putting in makes any sense in comparison to the money you can take out.
Okay. So like, I'm paying. So you said a cup is pretty expensive for a whole life policy. The example that I
In
asked
comparison.
in comparison, right? So the example that you kind of gave was 50,000, several $100s.
Hmm.
It comes with a cash savings account, but in the first couple of years of the policy, it has no cash value. Is what you're telling me.
Again,
I
this is a blanket statement. If
Okay.
your policy works totally different, then I applaud you. You may have a variable universal life that you put in a lot of. So, again, I don't like to make blanket statements on things, but I would highly recommend that you look, if you do have one of these policies, again, look at the cash value page under the surrender column and see how much you have in comparison to what you put in.
Let me ask you this, because as someone who's got a life insurance license, not a securities license, right? Um, if I had a very expensive policy that is growing or has like this savings account component to it, like, is this really a good use of my money, like in comparison to like saying like, okay, if I can pay half or less than half for my insurance policy, what can I do with the rest of the money to make it grow? Because like that's really what would sell me if I was like looking into
So
something that had that type of
I don't
benefit.
want to answer it that way. Here's
Okay.
the thing that more often than not happens. More often than not, people have an insurance policy and they don't understand the significance of what they have or why they have it.
Okay.
I have a $50,000 policy. Great. What does that mean to your family? I have a $100,000 policy. Great. What does that mean to your family? So when we sit down with someone and we help them figure out how much they need, the first thing we want to figure out is why. If you were to pass away, how much does your family need? How long do they need it for?
Right.
And our goal is to figure out exactly how much you need and for you to spend the least amount of money.
Okay.
Okay?
So what's one of the best ways to spend the least amount of money but
Correct.
get
By
the most
identifying correct. By identifying the need, and then with the money that we've saved you, let's go ahead and invest it.
Okay.
Okay. Now, the biggest complaint people have about term insurance is that at the end of the term, they have nothing to show for it. Because again, it's pure insurance. But we have come up with a way to resolve that, and that's called the premium recovery strategy, where what happens is the term policy may be a certain amount, X, and with the premium recovery strategy, you're going to pay a little bit more. But what's going to end up happening is at the end of the term,
Okay.
you're going to be reimbursed all of the money that you put out for the insurance. So let's say you do outlive the 30 years, which we hope you do. Now you no longer have that concern that, man, I
Okay.
paid this premium for 30 years, I have nothing to show for it.
Okay.
On the contrary, you now have an account with all of that money sitting in there that you could take a withdrawal,
Oh.
not a loan against, and it's your money to use however it is that you want.
So again, you said I can take the money. I don't have to borrow the money.
You don't have to pay it back.
I don't have
Correct.
no interest on my own money that I put away into an
Correct.
investment vehicle.
Now let's be clear, because the interest grew, Uncle Sam may want a bit of his cut.
Okay. So there's always going to be some taxes involved when it comes to an investment.
Absolutely.
But
Well, depending on how the investment is set up, if it's set up for retirement purposes, it could grow tax free or tax deferred. If it's just for the benefits of a party weekend in Las Vegas, then Uncle Sam's not going to give you any tax benefits for that. But again, this goes back to sitting down with a licensed professional
Okay.
that could discuss with you all of the tax implications on how it is that you want to put money away, because not all money is created equally. There's certain tax benefits available for one thing in comparison to others.
and that's what we can help a lot of our clients out with.
Absolutely.
And those who may want to become clients, right?
Absolutely. And here's the thing, guys. Like parents, our responsibility as advisors is to make sure you don't make an ignorant decision.
Okay.
If we educate you on how things work and then you decide to make a bad decision, then that's not our fault.
Right.
But if you made a bad decision because we didn't teach you or you didn't know any better, that's where we've done you a disservice. So our goal is to provide you the advice so that you make the best decision for you and your family.
And I don't think anyone's going to be able to say we're not trying to give you as much education and information as possible.
Absolutely not. And if you guys, and I'm gonna end with this. If you guys or know anyone that would be interested in learning this, because I'll tell you that I was introduced to this business as a client. I used to work for AT&T. I used to make really good money, but I used to spend all the money I made. So if you guys know anybody that would be interested not only in financial education, would be interested in learning this as a possible agent, the beautiful thing about our firm is that we pay you to get licensed. There are training bonuses, and it is something that you can work around your schedule. So if you know anybody that would be interested in having a discussion on that, feel free to refer them to Prince or myself. So,
hey, Rick, I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate all the information that you share with us. Again, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are watching live or watching this later on, please comment down below what gave you the most value, what really hit home.
And if there's anything you want us to elaborate with you one-on-one.
Absolutely. So you already know the people to follow at Flash Rick, FLASHRICK. We're here to help educate and empower. We appreciate your time. Ladies and gentlemen, until next time.
Have a blessed evening.
Your financial wellness moment. Peace. Have a great, safe weekend.